a red flag flying here.
And hello and welcome to the quadrancentennial edition of Political Unmuted. That's the 25th Silver Jubilee. There we go, 25 weeks every week with the same team who are looking only slightly older than they were before. Let's just say hello all together, everybody. Say hello. Hello.
Oh,
hello. Hi. And sort of this week, we joined back because you remember that Laura is poorly still. Sort of all our love to you, Paula. Get yourself better. But
Laura, you've merged our names there.
Did I say get better, Paul?
You said Paula.
Paula. Tell you, it's been that kind of day, and sort of I think we're going to.
And a slight aside, Laura would have been called Paul if she was a boy, and I would have been called Laura if I was a girl. So
right, okay.
Like the Posh and Becks, Paul and Laura.
Made for each other. I'm sure the people who sort of logged in trying to watch a political discussion show are delighted to know all this. So here we go. So Laura is being replaced not that she can ever be replaced by Lisa. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Now, I have to tell you, Lisa, that everybody has been so praising of you and how amazing you are and what an amazing person you are and fantastic and brilliant. I am totally terrified of you. So
I'm totally terrified by that.
Tell us about yourself so that the viewers know who you are and a little bit about you so they can relate to you.
A little bit about me. So my name's Lisa Collins. I'm a trade union official for USDOR, which is the Shop Workers Union. And I have been for 20 years next year. And I know you're all going to say, did you start when you were 5? Or you could say that to us. But no, I've been a union official for coming up to 20 years. I've got 3 boys who are 15, 13 and 12. So they keep us young, as to say. And I've got a passion for politics and just fairness, really. That's the main thing about me. I just want to make sure that people that can't look after themselves have got somebody there to look after them and stand up for them. So I think that's always been my beliefs. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Well, you're very welcome on the show, and standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves is absolutely fantastic. But we start every show, at least. Oh, by the way, did you know that my first job was working in Greenwood's The Man's Shop?
Oh,
yeah. I walked up
you
the
would have been a member of my union.
Sorry?
You would have been a member of my union.
I would. I walked up the high street, just knocking on every door, and sort of the second door I came to was Greenwood's The Man's Shop, and they gave me my first job. My first pay packet was 17 shillings and sixpence. And I went out and bought a Leonard Cohen LP with it, sort of blew the lot on the Leonard Cohen LP. Anyway, sort of much more important things to talk about now. I come to you last, Lisa, because you're the guest. We'll see what other people's moments of the week are. Paul, moment of the week.
I kind of went sort of a little bit viral this week on Twitter with a tweet which got some really, really weird responses, some very positive responses, some very negative responses. And it was simply reporting what happened at our CLP meeting on Friday, which was we had a vote of no confidence in David Evans, the General Secretary of the Labour Party, due to...
You said David Evans there. You didn't say David Evans. You said David Evans.
Did I?
Pick up on me saying Paul and Laura.
Yeah, sorry. So the CLP took a vote of no confidence in the General Secretary simply because our meeting was a disaster because we couldn't talk about anything because of some guidance that had been issued that we couldn't talk about guidance. So it was a bit of a sad one, and it's interesting to see what the responses were, and there was a lot of accusations in there of things which is sad to see, But yeah, it was a bit of a funny one. So I was in a really funny mood about it, but there was a lot of nice supportive things. But there was a lot of, I don't know. It was an uncomfortable time when my phone kept pinging all the time. So yeah, that was my moment of the week.
Little moment of infamy, Paul.
Yeah, I'm a bad man.
Stuart, moment of the week.
This one should turn your stomach. The Telegraph reported a headline which read, "The government saved £600 million on state pension payments as COVID deaths surge." And they'd been parading, what is a tragedy for this country as a government saving. And it was so disgusting to read. If that's what...
So my wife thinks that they're doing it on purpose. She's quite of the opinion that sort of, every one of those care home deaths, there's sort of £700 a week saved.
It certainly feels that way if it's being paraded as if this is a positive, and it's not. This is, a massive tragedy for our nation. And it just comes down to numbers and being treated like you're worth X amount of pounds. And if that's what journalism is today, I don't see the point in reading the papers anymore.
You're a wonderful man, Stuart. I am defying the government by refusing to die. I am collecting my pension every month. Samantha, moment of the week.
Hello. So from not reading the papers to my small victory, which is I managed to get somebody to reply to me via the letters section of the paper. This is partly because people say that I rely too much on social media. So I can say, look, I talked to somebody with words printed on smashed up trees. But yes, this is about this campaign that me and Laura and thousands probably of women and men across the country are campaigning to make misogyny a hate crime. So I wrote a letter to the Northern Echo about that, and somebody wrote back. Thomas Bell from Barnard Castle says, "I think there are too many hate crimes. There seems to be a hate crime for everything today." So that just made me laugh. It's like there's no room in the hate crime bin. We've written a list of hate crimes and it fits perfectly on one page. We can't go on to a second page. Like, why, where is this limit? So thankfully, it's not up to Thomas Bell. It is up to the Law Commission to put together some law to put towards the government. And I will continue pushing that along.
What makes hate a hate crime? I mean, really, sort of taking exactly the opposite line to Mr. Bell. I would have thought, if anybody is the victim of hate, that ought to be criminalized for me. I mean, we can all get fed up with people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about directed hate attack motivated by hatred, and we see it all the time. Surely that's just criminal. Surely it all should be criminal. I mean, you're talking about particular kind of hatred, the hatred directed at women, and 100% behind you. But sort of surely, and you say, and Edward Bell says, we've got enough as it is. But surely any hate crime, any hatred is a hate crime, or do you disagree?
Well, I mean, it obviously in the law they've got to have things written down in ways that can be interpreted by juries and judges and lawyers and things, don't they? I think people don't get the thing about misogyny because they assume, because gender is one of the protected characteristics in equality law, they assume the equality characteristics are the same as the hate crime characteristics, and for some reason women got left off that list. So yes, but you're right. There's too much hate in the world. And if somebody hates you, the best thing you can do to upset them is to love them to bits.
Reminds me of a lovely Charlie Brown cartoon when he's walking along with Lucy and he says, "The world's full of hate." And she says, "How do you know the world's full of hate?" And he says, because all the world hates me.
Oh.
Right, Lisa, there's no pressure on you here. One, you've got the sort of 3 brilliant moments of the week there. And I know that you've been thinking desperately to try and get one because we sprung it on you at the last minute. Did you have a moment of this week?
Yes. Yeah. Well, mine's more, it was the irony of something that I've thought of as the moment of the week. And that is, unfortunately, my week has been took over with all the announcements of the sort of high street going and Arcadia and Debenhams and all that. But the irony of it is when Philip Green announces the thousands of job losses from his £6 million yacht in Monaco. And that is such the irony of the fact of actually you shouldn't be sort of putting people out of jobs so much. And then we'll not even talk about the pensions that he sort of took all the money out of. But I think that was a moment of the week more for the irony around it.
I mean, why is this man still a knight? Why is he? I mean, he's a serial ruiner of lives, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, and he just goes, and they just seem to have one law for people like him, and they're sort of Teflon in a way. They just and just outrage. I mean, sort of how sort of. Are many of the people who are losing their jobs your members, or do you find that the sort of the people who work for in those kind of things generally tend not to be your members? Sort of, is this something that you are going to get drawn into as a union?
Yeah. We do have membership in this sort of area, but we don't have agreements, if that makes sense. So the big companies like Tesco, Morrison, Sainsbury's, we all have agreements with them. So in situations like this, we would be involved right from the beginning to consult with them to make sure the members had a voice and that within the likes of Debenhams and Arcadia, we have members, but we don't have an agreement. So that's one of the things USDA are calling upon. We're sort of saying, come and talk to us, let your workforce have a voice and come to a union, because they just won't even talk to us. Even in situations like this, they're just refusing to recognise a union when actually we could be a benefit because we are the voice of the workforce. And we have thousands of members in these companies as well. So they just need to talk to us.
It's so important to be in the union, isn't it? There have been 2 situations. I mean, I'm not anywhere near on the front line like you are, but there have been 2 situations this week where my advice has been go to your union. Just go to your union and sort that out. Thank you. That sort of, you turned that with. I'm sorry, team. That was the best one. Arcadia. You've got to admit that she trumped the 3 of you. There you go. I told you we need to be frightened of her. Sort of, I won't mention her. I won't invite her again. Okay. Now this is it. Thank you.
Now it's time for the big story.
Seamless. 25 episodes. Seamless, Paul. It gets better every week. Sort of the big story this week, chosen by the listeners on the poll, is the Tory revolt on tier 3, and whether we agree with being in tier 3. Do we agree with what's going to happen? Or I'm going to start with Lisa. Is this the tears of a clown?
Yeah. We all knew it would end in tears as well. That's
jump me again.
I know. I've actually pinched my husband's joke there, but anyway. But no, I think with the tier system, it's a very sort of divisive subject, isn't it? Because you've got the people that strongly believe that we need to be locked down. It's the only way we're going to get rid of this virus. It's the only way we're going to sort of conquer it, as to say, as if we go back to sort of the way we were in March. But then you've got the other side of it. Well, there's a few tiers, as to say. So you've got the other side that is it's too strict. you're taking away the sort of our liberty, our freedom, and the fact that the mental health that's causing by being locked down. So there's like two completely different stories there to have. I think the fact of the tier 3, the tier 2 and the tier 1, I think has been very sort of north-south divide as well, may I say. And I think even when my 15-year-old comes in from school and's like, oh, well, that's typical. We're in the north, so we're being put into tier 3. And he's not particularly political, my son. So for him to come out with that as a sort of a teenager, it's quite sort of out there when you look at the figures, and we've halved in COVID figures. Our R numbers lower than London. You just think, why are we in tier 3 when London's in tier 2? And the fact why it is halved, in my personal belief, is because we've been in these strict tiers for a lot longer than the rest of the country as well. So we are at the stage where we're really missing our family, we're really missing that social aspect. And I think there's going to be more breaches to it because we are getting there. I think the Tory sort of rebels, as to say, I think it's embarrassing for Boris. I think if I was Boris, I would be very embarrassed. But I also, and this again is my personal opinion, think if he wasn't Prime Minister, he'd probably be leading this rebel sort of thing, because I don't think he believes in it himself. That's my own personal opinion. And I think that, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say thank you. Just finish please finish the sentence.
No, I just think that it needs to be looked at, because the one thing that I think it has done, it's broke the confidence of the country again, because we needed everybody to be together, and now there's a break in the government or the political stance on it. It then gives the people who aren't following the rules a bit more of a, well, okay, then I can just go out and do it, because even the political people don't agree on it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a divisive that way. That's my thoughts.
If you'd have been an MP, Lisa, would you have voted for putting the North into tier 3, or would you have voted against it?
I think when you're an MP, you've got to think of the bigger picture of this. I think it's a very hard decision to sort of do that, and I would probably need to sort of speak to a lot more of my constituents and sort of do that, because at the moment I'm just going off my personal opinion and off what I hear when I'm out and about in the workplaces. But I think that it's needed. I sort of don't agree with the Christmas side of things as well, because I don't think COVID's gone away. So I think for us to be released for 5 days, and I use the word released because that's what it feels like, we're getting released for 5 days, I still sort of think I can't hug me nana, I can't sort of still go and do those personal things. It's just really, really difficult.
Right. So great, thank you. I shall Sam, would you have voted sort of for this? Do you think it's right that we go into tier 3?
It's really tricky. I respect the MPs that have voted against it. I feel like every time something like this comes up, we get told it's this or nothing, it's these restrictions or nothing. Well, I don't believe that's the case. I believe if it had been voted down, then Boris might have been forced into a position where he says, okay, we'll come back to you in 3 days with a new plan. I don't think there'd be suddenly no restrictions across the whole country. And if that is the case, it's bad of the government to put the House of Commons in that position. It's almost like blackmail, isn't it? Like, why didn't they have the vote last week so that they had a chance? They're backing people into a corner. So I would have been sorely tempted to vote against it. I usually have, because I'm a good girl, I usually have my nana around for Christmas dinner, and I have seen her this week, and we have had the conversation, which went something like this. It went, you don't want to come round my house for Christmas dinner, do you? And she said, no, pet. And it was a really sad conversation because we both desperately do want to be together for Christmas Day, but we know that it's a stupid thing to do. She's got COPD. She is really vulnerable. She's made it this far. Let's just get this vaccine. And I understand the logic about people are going to bend the rules anyway, so you may as well give them some leeway. But like Lisa says, going around talking to people, talking to real life people as you go about your day, you'll find there's a lot more people this time going, actually, I'm just going to do what I want to do and calculate my own risk. And part of the reason they're doing that is because they are fatigued, they are overwhelmed with it all. But also, like, we went from this super hyper localized situation where half of school Aycliffe was in like extra measures and half wasn't, and you couldn't go down to Darlington for a drink. Went from those like super hyper localized restrictions to broad brush strokes, the whole of the north, the whole of this bit, the whole of that bit. People don't believe it. People, you've got to work with people on this, and it just doesn't seem believable to people anymore. So I do think they've lost loads of credibility on this. And obviously I hope that people do follow the restrictions and that people stay safe.
Do you think that, I mean, one thing that I've noticed is this, they said, oh, it's falling apart, it's falling apart, it's falling apart. We need a lockdown of a month, that'll sort it. We get to the end of the month and actually it's just as bad as it was. And so they say, oh, we're going to have to go on longer. I mean, do you think that the failure of the national lockdown has been a turning point in, I mean, because everybody, I can remember criticising the government at the very beginning and everybody was down my throat about being loyal. Do you sense a general disillusion with the government as a whole on this? Do you think that their failure has been recognised?
Yeah, I think there's that thing that you said there, going into it in tier 2 and coming out of it in tier 3, you feel like, well, what was the point of that last month then? So that's a strong feeling people are feeling. I know they're calculating things, and this is another thing, isn't it? We know the reason why we're in tier 3 is because our NHS is struggling more than other places with might have higher infections. And the reason our NHS is struggling more is because we haven't historically had the funding and the infrastructure to cope as well as other places have, which just goes back to the last 10 years of austerity, doesn't it? So it's really complicated, and I respect people for being frustrated, but I think, we probably do just have to hang in there and try our best to not hug any grandmas for the next month or so, and then hopefully we can all get injected.
Sorry, Lisa.
I was going to say, do you think we've been in a lockdown? Like, honestly, for the past month, I'm still out and about because of my job. My job still takes me out and about, and I'm in a lot of supermarkets because of my job. And it's not a lockdown out there. It's sort of there's still traffic jams. The supermarkets, which don't get us started on, it's like Christmas every day in there because it was the only place they could shop because the high street was shut. So it was, and people were going out for day trips. It was basically, and I don't believe it's been a lockdown. It's completely been even busier than normal. And my children are still at school, although they've been in isolation umpteen million times. They are still at school. When I drop my children off, there's mothers collating together. It just hasn't been a lockdown in my eyes.
Stuart, has the lockdown failed?
Yeah, but it didn't fail because we were trying to lock down. It failed because the support that goes alongside it wasn't there. And locking down anywhere kind of exposes the class issues that we have. So the communities that have better shops and better infrastructure and more community wealth will have an easier time getting on with a lockdown. And it's really exposed how, short we have it up here. We don't have a lot of stuff. We're struggling, and that's forcing people into making poor decisions. You know, a lot of the judgments of people going out and breaking these rules is coming down to practicality. And you know, we need more money, we need more help. I would have voted against this package to just to be a platform to have a complaint about how unfair this is, to lock somewhere down without properly investing in the people and giving people a chance, giving people that lifeline.
So do you agree, therefore, that we need to go into nevertheless a tough tier 3 to batten down the disease, or are you do you think it's pointless? People are just going to do their own thing anyway.
It's pointless if you're not going to support the people to do it. If you're not going to support people to get through the lockdown, they're not going to do it. So it's pointless at that point.
How much is there a difference in support between being in lockdown and being in tier 3? What do we lose by moving from lockdown to tier 3?
For us, not a great deal. There won't be much change with what's on offer at the moment. If you wanted to get into the minutiae of it, the kind of situations you find in are people who have extra needs. They need extra support. They need extra time with people, and that's just being cut off. That's gone to the wayside to allow people to lock down. Richer areas, more wealth, gives people opportunity to work around the situation, and we don't have that opportunity.
Yes, it's very. I mean, you talk on the phone to people all the time. I mean, how generally are the people you talk to? I was the guy came to deliver my Tesco tonight, and he was right chatty, and we had a little chat, and he was saying that he was talking to one woman, and she was cleaning the path with a toothbrush, and he said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, if I can clean it with a toothbrush rather than a large brush, it takes me much longer and it fills my day." And then she just burst into tears, and she said, "I just have nothing to do." And I mean, the stress on people is huge. I asked you a question, and I got caught up with the lady who was crying because she was using a toothbrush to brush her thing. I completely lost track of where I was going. How have I asked you the question? Yeah. How do you find that people you're talking to are coping with the lockdown?
Generally poorly. They're struggling. You know, even with Labour Party membership contact, people used to, get out and meet people through physical meetings, and that's gone in every part of their lives. They don't pop down to the bookies anymore and see their mate once on a Wednesday, and they've got nothing. There's no help. Nothing else is coming out to help this big chunk of the community. We don't have the infrastructure to be able to provide opportunities for things for people to do and to socialize, and we're just so reliant on things like Zoom, but lots of people don't have access to even the basic technology, the confidence to get on Zoom and connect with people. We've really lost something.
Paul, is it going to be a bleak Christmas?
I think it could have been a lot better. I don't really understand what is supposed to happen over Christmas, really, and why they're putting in the rules as they are, relaxing the rules for a few days. What we have to remember is we went into a lockdown because the tiered system wasn't working. That it's a failed tier system. We're coming out of lockdown and very little effect. I think it might continue about a week or so into it where the cases drop, because cases have been dropping. So something has happened. But has it happened dramatically enough? I don't think so. I think the reason for that is because schools are open and there are so many people. And I'm not for entirely shutting schools, but we should be sensible. Like, it's really obvious what's driving it. And I think 1 week of shutting down schools, which was half term, is probably like, with everything else, is probably like kind of taking that down a little bit, taking the rate of infection down a little bit. But I think we're going to see it rocket back up again because, it's about time that it's kicked back up again after schools have reopened. But we're going back into a failed tier system that has been shown not to work, that the scientists, when it was introduced, said was not going to work, which only provided enough support for businesses in tier 3 once London had to deal with the same consequences. And this seems dreadfully unfair, and I've said all along that people should have just been told the truth. This is extremely dangerous, especially for people who were vulnerable. So why don't we all take extra care? Why don't we all make sure that we wear a face covering? Why don't we do it on a goodwill basis rather than on a rules basis, and then say your mate Dominic Cummings absolutely obliterate any faith in that system whatsoever, because they showed that certain people weren't going to get punished, and that really encouraged people to just say, I'm just going to do whatever I want because this is really unfair. But the system that we're in now, all that is missing now is fun. We've got to go to work. We've got to do the daily grind. And me and my colleagues, I work in a school. It's hard. And sometimes, we think, oh, shall we go for a drink on a Friday after work? Well, we can't go for a drink on a Friday after work. We can sit in a room together all day, and we can sit in a room with the same children. You can sit in a room with 30 other households, but you can't go with that same group of people and socialize and have, and it's,
So
everyone sees the flaws in it.
Do you think letting the country off the leash for 5 days at Christmas actually might be a good thing? Just let us have a bit of fun, as long
I don't. As a teacher, that like if you are really, really strict and then say, right, everyone go crackers for a couple of days, people will go crackers. Like, people will take risks. They'll do more than they should. I don't know if pubs are going to open for those 5 days or whatever. I really don't know what's in those relaxation of the restrictions. But people are not going to. We're being treated a little bit like children, and rather than responsible adults who understand how to live our lives and that we should be caring for one another. If the focus was care for each other, worry about one another catching the virus from one another, then you'd probably find that people are okay. But actually, by imposing guidelines on people, imposing rules and laws on people, you're telling them that you expect the worst from them. So they're saying, oh, we're allowed to do this now, so let's go and do it to the most maximum carnage level of that we can do this. And that's what worries me. I think it will really cause another surge. Just before lockdown, everyone went to the shops. And why in the world we're doing 24-hour shop opening? Like, what is that about?
That's such a Tory solution, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
open the shops
how do we
24
solve
hours.
this problem? Let's axe workers' rights by making it possible for the shops to open when desperate people will be forced to work terrible hours in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah,
you'd almost think that was some sort of like backdoor deregulation thing, if I didn't know any better, but I do know better actually, and it probably
next year it'll be like, oh, remember last year when we had 24-hour Primark? Yeah, I really want 24-hour Primark. Before we skip on, can I say something else? Because there is something really crucial that if we were following the science, we would do, right? So Paul's talking about schools, and we all know that we know that there's loads of kids in school who've got COVID and they're not maybe asymptomatic or whatever. So that's why the government seems to think that it doesn't matter. Right. So why are we making it so that the only time these kids can see their grandparents is within a 2-week isolation period of when they finish school? We've made it illegal for parents to push their Christmas to New Year when it might be a bit safer because they've had 2 weeks to monitor the kids during the school holidays, because the Christmas bubble's only 5 days. So if you're going to see grandma, you have to see her like less than a week or a week just after you finish school. Maybe it might have been sensible to break up schools a week earlier so that we had time where we could monitor our kids, give them some time to quarantine before we expose them to the most vulnerable people in society. It doesn't make any sense. And these things is what makes people not believe the government, because it just makes such obvious no sense.
Thank you. I'm going to bring this to an end, not because people are continuing to say things of deep importance, but because we're running 5 minutes late and Chris Barty has been waiting.
I'm going to keep talking so I don't end up having to talk about international aid.
String it out. And so I'm going to admit, so this is the moment where listeners, we interview our candidate. Sort of in a little while, we're going to be holding the selections. Hi, Chris, are you there?
Oh, she's connecting. She's got makeup on.
When these are the people who are hoping to be chosen by the Labour Party to stand for election in the May elections. And so what we do is we're bringing them on one person after another, and we're sort of allowing you to meet them. And we're looking very carefully at the background, at the kind of rooms they live in as well. It's a great joy for all of us. And and we ask them the same questions, so it's absolutely fair. And so I managed that. Hi, Chris, I hear. Can you hear us now?
I can indeed, John. Thank you.
Oh, we can hear
fantastic.
you. Great to hear you. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm just going to allow you to introduce yourself. And my question is, why do you want to be a Labour county councillor?
Oh, right. Well then, right. Right. Okay. Well, I've worked a lot in the community and seen a few things that I think really need to change. So I thought, right, I believe I can bring a fresh, new voice and outlook and represent the ward at County Hall as well as part of the Labour group. And I feel that the ward I live in isn't a huge industrial area. Its focus is on the people, families, safety, and a clean environment to live in. And I know that only Labour can deliver those kind of services. But we all need to have to listen to the people. And I want to be their voice at County Hall. It's not about me, it's about them, John. And that's why I want to be at County Hall.
What a lovely thing to say. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to ask the sort of Paul, your question.
So, what particular things would you like to do as a county councillor if you were elected?
Right. Okay. Well, I think most people who know me know I have a particularly interested in the well-being of children and families, because that's what I've done for a long time in my job. And I firmly believe that great opportunities for young people will not only help them as individuals, but help reduce this antisocial behaviour we keep hearing about. So finding things for young people to do and want to do, which is a totally different thing, would be something I would like to focus on. And resources in my ward are stretched. School closures, empty shops, lack of public transport, the loss of 2 doctor surgeries have made a huge impact. We don't need to see greedy developers building houses on green spaces and increasing the strain. So, but before all of this, one of the first things I would like to do is to establish a good working relationship with the other 2, hopefully, Labour councillors in Trimdon, Weakley Hill and Thornley. We are 3 areas that are physically quite distant, and to maximise the impact and ensure that the communities get all they are entitled to, we need to meet each other and hold surgeries with our communities on a regular basis, so that whatever we do It's for the people out there, and it's what they want.
Samantha.
What campaigns in the community or in the Labour Party have you been involved with? Now, you don't have a long time, so you'll have to make it a short list. I know you've got
I had
loads
to
to talk
sneak the
about.
submissions. You might ask us this. So I wrote it down so I could run through it as quickly as I could, and I put as
Fab.
much together as I could. Right, as quick as I can. I spent 12 years as a district and borough councillor representing the Labour Party. I've campaigned in Ferryhill with other members of Sedgefield CLB to reopen the railway station and Blameside line. Leaflet and door knock during the last election in both Sedgefield and Bishop Auckland CLPs, as well as previous elections. Held man the stall and handing out leaflets in Newton Aycliffe before Christmas last year, and it's actually a year today that we did that. Campaigned to stop the closure of the sorting and post office in Trimden along with Councillor Lucy Hovels. I've campaigned against the school cuts and still campaigning against the privatisation of the NHS. I'm the secretary of my local branch and vice chair of Sedgefield CLP. As coordinator of Durham WASPI, I've been county-wide visiting other CLPs, councils and organisations to make people aware of the injustice facing 1950s women, including visiting the Houses of Parliament to lobby MPs and gain support, even if they didn't want us there, they got us. Former women's officer, now retired members office of the Unison's Durham branch. I'm very involved with the Women's Network and other trade union related issues, and a member of the Women's Banners. Under the Labour banner, I have and will continue to hold free of charge baby massage and baby save a life courses in locations around the CLP, including my own area. During the crisis, I've been fortunate enough to be able to volunteer in a number of roles in the community, including delivering food from Trimden Grange Community Centre on Mondays, from Trimden Community College on Tuesdays and Fridays. While through my role as a member of East Durham Rural Corridor AAP, I've delivered hot meals to sheltering people in Ludworth and Shadworth on Wednesdays and Sundays. And finally, I recently, as from today, become a Durham County Council COVID-19 Community Champion Plus, so open to get out there, dispel the myths and circulate the truth to people in the local community. Thank you. Was that quick enough for you?
Amazing. Well done. You are so hardworking. I love the baby save a life and the baby massage stuff, because that is exactly the type of, and I donate my time to do the graphic design for that, for the posters, so they look proper nice, and it's, well, it's all, you know, it's just how it should be. It's not you know, all this stuff that was taken away when She Was Start was taken away, and it was just so crucial. It's such a great opportunity for a parent to bond with their child and to understand their cues and what sounds they make.
Yes.
It's so vital.
And I think with Baby Save a Life, it's good for anybody who might be looking after that baby, even if it's grandparents or a childminder, anybody, everybody should have Baby Save a Life. And it's costing them maybe an hour, and it could save a baby's life. So I love doing it. I love seeing the families, and you know, I'll keep on doing it as long as I can.
We have recorded all this, and what Paul will do before the election is he will just cut out that little section where you describe all the things you've done, and I think we'll just get that going viral. So a tremendous community worker, an absolute force of nature, Chris. It's been such an honour to have you on. I'm going to kick you out now. So that's your reward for being so good. We're going to put you back in the waiting room, and goodbye. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And,
thank you for your time and trouble for what you do as well. Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
I don't know. Is it more? Put in waiting room. There she goes. Right, and now. Stuart, how sensible is a centralised custody suite tell us what's going on first, so people know what the question means, and then share your thoughts about it.
Right. The local bobbies want a more centralised custody suite, which is going to cost 21 million quid. They want to stick it in Spennymoor and hopefully replace the 4 suites that they currently have in Durham City, Darlington, Bishop Auckland and Peterlee. The hope is that it would save money on those 4 sites, but it would cost a considerable amount of time in taxiing people backwards and forwards.
And do you agree?
I think it's a bad idea. I mean, police time is more precious than the pounds that they cost, shall we say. I think that it would be better if we were to lobby the government for proper funding for the police, so that we had better community policing going on, and we weren't just a taxi service for a custody suite.
I mean, what strikes me about this is that everybody is telling him that it's a bad idea, but he's still ploughing on with it. I mean, are there no positives to it apart from saving money?
I honestly can't see any. I mean, there's the positives maybe of some short-term building investment. I'm not sure that Spennymoor as a community is all that fond of the idea of a massive custody suite on the edge of town. I don't think they really recognised how precious police time is. People used to get really concerned when police officers were having to spend so much time writing reports. And having people drive from Peterlee, Easington to drop somebody off in Spennymoor and then drive all the way back to do their community policing, it's just such an incredible waste for us.
Will it increase? I mean, I do know that the police spend an amount of time just waiting around to have the person who's arrested processed. I mean, will it increase the amount of time that they spend sitting around? I mean, as well as they taking the hour to drive them there, sort of will there be bottlenecks, or have they got some kind of system whereby they'll be able to move these people through faster and quicker?
I would imagine that it will be a continuation of the bottlenecks that we've got now. I don't see them taking on any more staff for the new building that are going to alleviate some of the pressures. I think it's a means of just shuffling everything into a smaller, neater pile for the end of year accountants report.
Paul, what's your thoughts on this?
It's amazing to me that they would consider this to be something that is a priority. Obviously, they're trying to upgrade the facilities that they have, saying that they need more better disabled access. Maybe they're interested in arresting a lot more disabled people. I'm not really sure. But they also said that they need to have a video link for court and things like that. You know, look at us now. We're on a video link at the moment. It isn't a hugely difficult thing to do with current technology. And also, I think it's a lot to do with the Londonization of everything in our country. Everything is designed for London. So in London, you've got these, like, you know, you would have the same amount of people in a much smaller area in London. And for something like that, a big facility would probably make sense. It would probably, so you could say, okay, we all go to this central place that's, 1 or 2 miles away, but we're like, we're not considered to be rural, but we're in a lot of places in County Durham, it's a rural community. You could be up in Weardale or anything and traveling down to Spennymoor or over to the East Coast, or, as a trade union representative, I sometimes think, you can travel like 120 miles round trip to represent someone and within County Durham. It's a very easy thing to do. So it doesn't make any sense for geographically, like the way the geography of County Durham, it doesn't make any sense to have this centralized facility, even though it would make sense if the population was very, very dense. And I think that's why they're trying to do it. And I'm sure they'll have some statistics saying, oh, this really works, but it doesn't work in a community that is spread out. It maybe works in a community that's very, very close together, and that have a lot more police officers, because they do get a lot more police officers on the streets there, because, like, you know, in our communities, we don't see the police. The police are dealing with mental health issues on a day-to-day basis. That's taken up all of their time. So I'd be looking at things like, you know, can we do more to fund mental health services, rather than thinking about spending money on a new custodial suite. You know, I think it would probably be cheaper and more sensible to upgrade the facilities they already have. I'm sure the one at Peterlee is only 15 years old or something like that. It's not a particularly old building or anything. So I don't really see the logic in it, and I'm disappointed that that's the conversation that we're having around. It's not even about rehabilitation, is it? It's a waste.
A waste of time. Lisa, what's your thoughts on this?
I agree with Paul and Stuart's points there, to be honest, because I think what the police said it was designed for was to sort of save jobs, save time of the police, everything you've sort of said. And I can't see it that way. I think in everything, it's designed to probably cut people's hours, and it'll be, instead of we need this amount of police officers because we have these many suites, it'll be like, well, we only need 1 or 2 now, and that'll be police time gone, not replaced with something else. So again, I agree with sort of everything you've said. I think money could be spent elsewhere in the rehabilitation, rather than trying to make us into a city when we're not a city, we're a county. We have got the different villages and that. So yeah, just echoing exactly what Paul and Stuart said there. I think I agree with them.
I mean, what it is that sort of, I mean, people do say you phone up the police and it's an hour before they get there, and the trouble's gone by the time they've arrived, or they never turn up at all. I mean, do you think that the kind of arguments that sort of say, and they'll just be wasting the time going backwards and forwards to Spennymoor, do you think that those arguments are over-egged because they play to this stereotype we have of the police of not turning up and not being there when we need them? Sort of, are you absolutely sure that sort of what the three of you are saying is not based on a stereotype of the police rather than the actuality? And when you dismiss the facts and the figures that the guy is giving, are we perhaps being too harsh?
Sorry, I lost you there, John.
Oh, sorry, it's okay. I was basically saying, sort of, I mean, so that we have this stereotype of the police of never being there and wasting their time and sort of not being the Bobby on the beat that we want to see. And this argument that they'll be wasting the time backwards and forwards to Spennymoor, it plays to that sort of prejudice. And this guy has got real facts and figures which sort of say this will be much better, much more efficient if we do it this way. And so my challenge to you and to Paul and Stuart really was sort of, are we playing to people's prejudices rather than looking at the facts that he's giving us?
Yeah, well, a lot of my sort of good friends are police officers, so I'm aware of sort of the stereotypical sort of point of view that they get, but the reality is they are understaffed themselves, and some of the jobs that they get sent out to singly rather than double, before it used to be a case of 2 police officers turn up and they haven't got the sort of personnel now to send to. It sort of astounds me that they are getting sent into these dangerous situations by themselves. So actually any freeing up of time would be a saviour, do you know what I mean, to do that. And I just think that the taxiing back and forth, I mean, environmentally, it's not good as well. I mean, how much are we putting more into the environment of sort of having a taxi back and forth? I mean, I've literally just been to Bishop Auckland today, and I live in Merton, and that was a good sort of 30-40 minute trip. And if you imagine, that's the like you pass Spennymoor and you're talking trips like that, aren't you? And that would be a 5-10 minute trip down the road instead of a 30-minute, 40 minutes. So I don't think it's building to the stereotype of them. And I think police officers do a really good job out there, and I think they're underestimated for what they do.
I think what we need is one of those systems that they used to have in Duggards, where you take the tube and you put the criminal in the tube and twist it, and then you shove it in that thing and it goes off there. That's what we need. Stuart, Sam, I'm going to finish off with you and you'll have the last word of the show. Stuart indicated that he wanted to say something when I was challenging Lisa. Stuart.
Yeah, on the stereotype, that's come around because we've had nearly 400 police officers in the area axed. Since 2010, and I think that's nearly 20% of our on the streets policing, our community police force gone, and that's where the stereotypes come from. It isn't that they're hiding around the corner being lazy; it's because they are stretched incredibly thin, and 21 million quid would be a fair few bobbies back on the streets, wouldn't it?
God bless you, Stuart. Samantha. Last thing, tell us about Joy Allen and what she's doing and what you think of the Joy Allen campaign.
Sure. So obviously Joy is our Police and Crime Commissioner candidate. We usually have, and lots of people don't understand this, we usually have an elected Police, Crime and Victims Commissioner, and it's kind of their job to deal with the politics of these are very deeply political decisions, and they are elected, so they're directly, like people can directly hold them to account by saying, I'm not going to vote for you next time. And so, but we currently don't have one because unfortunately our previous one, Ron Hogg, died. So we've got an interim, unelected Police, Crime and Victims Commissioner. Joy's argument, which is actually the same argument as our Conservative MPs have at the moment, is that decisions like this need to wait until we've got an elected person in the position, so that there's a direct reason there for them to engage with the community who elected them. And that seems very sensible. There was a really good write-up about this from the police's perspective, which I've copied and pasted in the comments of the video, where, and it always amazes me how when you get really high up in the NHS and really high up in the police, they start talking more and more like politicians. Mr. White, the non-elected Police and Crime Commissioner, man, says currently the force is working at a high level of corporate risk with the facilities that they've got, which means that he's worried that people are going to sue them for the unsubstandard custody suites they have at the moment. Whether you think that's likely or not, I am not sure. He also says about this ferrying backwards and forwards thing, that there will be prisoner handling teams. I can't see it now. Anyway, but it says so that the police can leave the prisoner with this other person, right? So there's two things there. The word can doesn't mean will. And the other thing is back office staff at the police have been cut massively as well. So the likelihood is this mythological person who is supposed to be there to take the prisoner off you won't be there, and the officer will have to stay with them anyway, and it'll end up being the worst of both worlds. So yes, it does seem like everybody's pushing for it to be I mean, it's only supposed to be, it's less than 6 months away, the election now. So you think for this much of a massive thing, and Stuart's absolutely right. The people of Spennymoor are not happy with the council on most days, and they're going to be even less happy when a massive custody suite that serves the whole of County Durham and Darlington is built in their backyard. I mean, I know there's NIMBYism, but that's extreme, isn't it? That's extreme.
Thank you. How interesting you've been there, Samantha. That sort of told me a whole load of stuff I didn't know. God bless you.
You need to read
and
the paper.
that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We've
Squash trees, it's amazing.
We've passed the time. We've run out of time. We've got a whole topic that we haven't addressed, and sort of doesn't time go quickly when you're enjoying yourself.
Yes.
Lisa, thank you for joining us. You've been sort of so lovely to join us, and as terrifying as I was one. Sam, Stuart, and Paul, God bless you. You're just superb as always. Listeners, I hope you put some comments, because you know what happens now. We leave you for a song, and then we come back and we look at what you've been saying about these topics, and for a short while. And so you're welcome to go now, and sort of if you do, goodbye and God bless listening. For sort of, you can come back for the chill out zone afterward, where we let our hair down and say things that get us into trouble. So thank you. Are we ready with the music, Paul?
Yeah, we are. And just in case Lisa thinks she has to go now, she can definitely stay. Because we have had guests leave at this point, and we've gone, where have they gone? Where have they gone? So we do like an extra half hour now. So when we say bye, and then like that's the end of the podcast, and then we do a little bit of extra time. So you're welcome to stay.
All right.
Say bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. We're going now.
Keep the red flag flying here.